This tutorial is about coding for momentary switches, but it also applies to capacitance switches or touch sensors. In the description below this video you will find a link to the GitHub code repository that includes a wiring schematics, the bill of materials and detailed explanations for each line of code. You will learn how to toggle something on and off. You will learn how to set an auto-off timer. You will learn how to cycle through different modes. And you will learn how to detect short and long button presses. To keep it simple, we use LEDs instead of sensors, motors or other actuators, because the clever stuff happens as always in the code. Here's an overview of all parts in case you're not so familiar with them. You can find cheaper substitutes online for most parts, and we only use bits that you get with a typical starter pack. The wiring of each setup isn't difficult, and alternatively you could use an online Arduino simulator like Wogwi or Tinkercad. Setup 1. Toggling something on and off. An 0.1 microfarad capacitor debounces the switch, so no other code is required. Please look carefully at the serial monitor as the button is pressed and released. You realize that pressing a button generates two events, not one. Remove the capacitor and see what happens in the serial monitor. Here we toggle the LED upon releasing the button, but you could also use the pressing event to toggle, or to trigger another action. Look at the code with detailed explanations for how this is done. Setup 2. Setting an auto-off timer. Here we start a millispace timer upon releasing the button. The timer is not blocking other running code, and you can set any duration, whether milliseconds, minutes or hours. You can also use other events to start the timer, and you could have more than just one. Look at the code with detailed explanations for how this is done. Setup 3. Cycling through different modes. Every time the button is pressed and released, we are incrementing a counter to set a different mode of operation, as you can see in the serial monitor. Each mode could run code to do something else. Cycling through LED animations, taking sensor readings, trigger a sequence of motor actions, or anything else you can think of. Look at the code with detailed explanations for how this is done. Setup 4. Detecting short and long button presses. Here we take the time between pressing and releasing the button, just like with a stopwatch, and do something based on the time it took. We print a different message to the serial monitor, as well as the time between pressing and releasing the button. This way, with a single momentary switch, you can trigger various actions. Look at the code with detailed explanations for how this is done. Like I mentioned in the beginning, the clever stuff happens always in the code. Every line of code is carefully commented, so you can learn the logic step by step. So please head over to GitHub and take a good look. Once you understood each principle, you can confidently code for your own designs with momentary or capacitance switches. And now it's your turn. Thank you for watching and listening.